talk a little bit about cognitive reframing, shall we? I was sort of in and on the fringes of a conversation the other day. I wasn't in it. I was just sort of, like I said, on the periphery. And the people were talking about money, which I have to say, other than politics and religion, may be the most fraught issue that any of us can take on in a group. And this group was talking about people who go to school for a really long time, like law school, med school, grad school, that kind of thing, and take out loans. But they were talking about a profession where people would do this and then not make that much money afterwards. Or it was the nature of the jobs that you get with this graduate degrees. It takes a long time to make money. And the overall gist of what was being discussed, as I could hear it, is that we have to be more open with talking about money and teach students in high school and college and graduate school more about financial literacy. I agree with that. I actually don't think we tell most people how money works, how interest works, that money is a long game, all the things, right? That conversation up to that point seemed like a reasonable thing. And I kind of started tuning out until I heard some people piping in and saying, we have no right to complain about our incomes. All these people did the same thing. We have no right to complain about our incomes because other people are financially struggling. I kind of cocked my head sideways and said, wait, what? The person who was originally talking was talking about being underpaid. And this person was clearly underpaid, right? And someone else was minimizing this person's experience of being underpaid by basically saying, hey, someone has it worse than you. The person whose income was lower than it should be, again, was highly educated. These are all people with graduate degrees, and was actually getting a bad deal. And my guess was going to need to find a different job. It was just the nature of the place that this person worked. And the person who was pushing back was basically saying, hey, someone who has less education than you also makes less money than you, so you have to stop complaining. I was like, what? You're not even complaining. It's not even apples and oranges. It's like apples and buffaloes. Like, you're not even complaining anything in closely the same thing. So this unfortunate person who was underpaid, despite having literally multiple graduate degrees, you could see on their face, they felt bad. And then other people in the conversation said, well, maybe we should all feel bad about how much money we're making. Well, I didn't feel bad about that. And I was like, what? I had a sort of don't engage Ramani moment then, and I shook my head. Listen, folks, someone is always going to have it worse than you, and a lot of people are going to have it better. If you don't make enough money, there's still someone who makes less. If you went through a loss, there's someone out there who lost a lot more. If you experienced a trauma, someone's had a worse one. You got 7 billion people on the planet. There's always going to be someone who's got it worse. That doesn't mean that what you went through doesn't suck. It's a gaslight, right? Well, your nurse isn't that bad. But it was painful to watch one person share actually something quite vulnerable and real, and then watch it sort of be shut down with, well, you shouldn't say anything because other people have it worse. Other people who didn't devote the same amount of time into education and all this other stuff, and this person did. This led to another person in this conversation. Don't ask me why I didn't get up and leave. I could not escape, right? To say, well, I agree. Well, let's think about all of the financial issues y'all are having and let's cognitively reframe it, which is a fancy way of saying, let's think differently about your insufficient salaries despite the amount of time you put in and that you can't really pay your bills. There's no way to think differently about it. Let's start by letting them know that many of the people in this conversation were getting screwed by their employers and that they either need to ask for more money or leave. And also that it sucks to not be recognized for your work. Because I don't know what world the cognitive reframers lived in, but rent, mortgage, cars, heat, food, where I live, it all costs money. I'm someone, like I said, and I've been very clear on this channel, I'm going through some stuff now. A surgery from which I'm having a rather complicated recovery. I have another freaking surgery looming. And I had the loss of one of the people to whom I was most close in the world. And every single freaking time someone tried to brightside me for the past several months, they keep saying, it will get better. She is in a better place. You will feel better soon. This will be behind you before you know it. In the future, things will be better. Or they'll say to me, let me tell you, I know someone who had a worse story than yours. Or you are so lucky that you loved your mom. or you're lucky that you didn't die in surgery. That was one of my personal favorites. Really? So I have a problem with cognitive reframing, which is a way to attempt to change how you feel by focusing on thoughts instead of feelings, on thoughts rather than our bodies, on thoughts rather than depth. And this is something that happens to survivors all the time. They get it from friends, family, therapists, pastors, Instagram life coaches, Instagram posts, social media. Just think differently about it. Reframe it. Someone has it worse than you. And so survivors hear shit like, well, at least he doesn't hit you. At least you still have a mother. At least you have children. At least you have bread in your fridge. What? And you know this as a survivor. You are already blaming and questioning yourself, wondering if you're making too big a deal of it. You ask yourself, okay, maybe this is just what relationships are. Maybe I'm not, maybe I'm expecting something unrealistic. Maybe I'm the entitled narcissistic one. Maybe, because after all, other people have it worse than me. Most survivors who get stuck in narcissistic relationships, y'all are cognitive reframer experts. You have tried to reframe your mess about 1,000,000 times. Listen, are there some survivors out there that get stuck into loops for a long time? Yep. And my approach there is to validate that what happened or is happening is real, and what's happening in the relationship is real. It's not okay. And to help ungaslight them so they can make a decision about the relationship that works for them. Now, if after all that, weeks, months, years, and they still can't see it clearly and can't break out of the loop, then I would actually really highly recommend, especially after a few months, that they do much more intensive trauma-informed work. But for many survivors, we keep trying to push the cognitive reframe before we give them the validation. It doesn't work that way. Knowing and being reassured and being told that you aren't seeing it wrong, that you are not crazy, that you are not unreasonable, or actually hearing that what is happening is not okay, that's actually often enough for people to say, oh my gosh, thank you. I feel better. Thank you. You feel more solidly in your body and your mind. You trust yourself a tiny bit more, even if nothing's changing. All of that stuff, the manipulation, the invalidation, the gaslighting, the betrayal, it all still sucks. But to just get validated not only helps you get soothed and calmed, you learn a little bit more about the geography of the relationship. And once that happens, once you really get it, if you want to reframe, then reframe. But you have to reframe from a realistic place, such as, okay, now that I know he's not going to change, but the custody fight is just not something I can afford or endure right now, I'm going to reframe for now and put my focus on the kids. I'm no longer going to think about the misery of this relationship. I'm no longer going to keep thinking about pleasing this unpleasable spouse. Or the reframe may become, I know, because this is why parents triangulate, they're going to pit me and my sister against each other. So let me get on the same page as my sister so they can't divide and conquer, and be prepared for when they do it. And if I can't do that, or she won't get on the same page as me, then I need to disengage. It becomes a reframe. But reframing it as, well, at least I'm in a relationship, at least I have a sister, nah. Asking survivors of toxic and narcissistic relationships to reframe in the sense of, well, it's not that bad. Everyone has bad days. Or find things to be grateful for in your narcissistic relationship is actually simply harming them again. And yet people do it all the time. When I was sitting there on the periphery and listening to that conversation, and I watched this reframe sort of train wreck happen in front of me in real time, shutting down real people who were frustrated with having gone into so much debt and studying so hard to not be valued financially. It really made me think about all the survivors who have had similar experiences in their relationships when other people weighed in. And to everyone out there who's listening and like, oh, cognitive reframes are great. Great. Keep reframing. You do you. But let me give you the suggestion. Validate a person's experience first before you push for the reframe. And to those of you who are constantly being encouraged to reframe your abusive situation, remind yourself that this cognitive reframing play allows those people telling you to reframe, it allows them to stay in their comfortable little bubbles and shut your pain down. Most of you, most survivors of toxic relationships are elite reframers. No one does it better than you. But until you're validated, it doesn't do a damn thing to ease your pain. Silencing your own pain to make other people more comfortable with their own lives is not cool, and it will slow down your healing. And when people ask that from you, it can be confusing and magnify your pain. So let the reframers stick their reframing where the sun don't shine, and then they can reframe that if they want. Thanks again.